Do you have a personal brand? Like a real one? Not just one that you show up to work and people know you for what you do, but you actually have a brand in the marketplace where people know of you, that people come to you for certain things or know to go to you when they run into a problem. That's what I want to talk about today. When it comes to personal branding, you want to stand for something, you want to stand on something, and you want to make it an experience. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll get to that in a little bit, but let me give you a bit of context to how personal branding works. One of the ways personal branding works is a little bit like an Instagram star. If you've heard of these models and people who have built up a following on Instagram and all of a sudden they're getting modeling contracts or they're getting TV deals or they're being noticed by the media, that's because they built a following. And quite often they built a following by being some kind of influencer or some kind of personality. But they didn't start there. Remember, they start at being interesting, then they become a go-to person and then an expert at something. And once they become an expert, they start to influence by bringing their personality out and what they bring to what they do, not just what they do. In Australia, we all know the name Kyle Sandilands, and most of that is because he managed to pop up on the radio, make a few people unhappy, get in the media, and then all of a sudden he's an expert judging Australian Idol. His personality gained him the platform to stand for something and to be an expert and considered in something. I mean, to think about it a different way, if you think about someone who's really known for something and being a technical expert at something specific, say basketball and LeBron James, he's not only an expert at his craft or at playing basketball, he's now an influencer. Nike signed a lifetime deal with him. Kia sells cars using his name and his brand. And now he's signed a movie and TV deal with Warner Brothers. What happens is when you go from being interesting to be the go-to guy, so when he was in high school growing up playing basketball, he became the go-to guy to build, to grow the team, and that's why he got picked out of high school and taken straight to the NBA, missed the whole college scene altogether. Came to the NBA, established himself as a leader, became an influencer by his teamwork and by moving to Miami and then back again and becoming a personality in the industry and leveraging things like social media and the media to really gain a following and be a personality and really show, I guess, his personal life and his family life. Allowed him to move into other spaces and really command that audience that he's got in a way that most athletes can't. And that's what's really leveraged his personal brand to such a success today, where he's signing multi-million, multi-year deals to the end of his life, like he's done with Nike. So that's huge. And how do you do that? And how do you get started? And if you've got a personal brand right now and you're trying to build it, or if you're working in professional services and people are buying from your brand, how you grow it is really, really important. And that's essentially what I want to work from today. So the three things I need you to think about specifically are, what do you stand for? What is that thing that you stand for? It's got to do with your expertise, but if you think about a personality, they don't just have an expertise, they also stand for something within that expertise. If you're talking about, if I self-reflect for a little bit here, what I really stand for is self-identity and understanding how valuable who you are is to why you market yourself, and understanding that having a good sense of self and having a good value of who you are and why that's important not only saves you from the traps that come along with being an entrepreneur or being in business or growing a brand, but it also fights some of those more lonelier moments along the way as well. Not only that, you want to stand on something. Now, if you work for a big firm, that's pretty easy. You're standing on a big firm. You've got a name you can associate with and you can use that to your advantage. Someone like LeBron James is going to use the Cleveland Cavaliers or Miami Heat as a platform to grow from. But he's not going to use that as his be-all and end-all. That's just a platform. He's going to use that to create a new platform on Instagram. He's going to use that to create a new platform on Snapchat. He's going to use that to create a new platform in the media so that people come to him for all sorts of things. So if you're in a firm or if you're trying to build a brand or if you're trying to build a business, what are you standing on? what is the actual platform that's been built already, or why do people come to you and where do they come to you? And how can you leverage that to create a new platform, maybe on social media, or maybe it's actually in the media. Maybe you become a go-to person on a particular topic. The last thing, and this is probably the most important piece and where a lot of people let this down, is around branding and experience. A brand is about being always on. It's about every single experience they've ever had with you from the start to the finish. If you're in services, that means every single experience from the first meeting to the sending of the invoice to the follow-up phone call. Everything needs to be an experience. Now, if you stand for something and you stand on something, you can be really clever with that. Your follow-up phone call might be a Snapchat. Your follow-up email might be something really funny, might be a personal message, might be something really heartfelt and warm. Whatever it is, by standing for something, you're positioning yourself as an authority. You're giving yourself an authoritative lens and you're giving yourself a lever to kind of show why you're passionate about that particular area. By standing on something, you're giving yourself a platform where you can be your authentic self, where people don't misinterpret your personal brand and don't lose sight of the fact that you do work for a Big Four firm, or that you do work for a boutique consultancy, or that you do work for yourself, and that you're building an entrepreneurship, or you're in entrepreneurship. It gives them an idea of where you are at now and what you're trying to grow. And then, of course, it's about making an experience. And that's about performance. So really what you're trying to do is establish position, platform, and performance. And if you can establish those three things uniquely to you and what you bring to what you do, not just what you do, you create a huge amount of opportunity in your space. And that's where I start to talk about generosity. Generosity within personal branding is incredibly important, because when you're performing for your clients, when you're performing for your audience or providing value in any way, whether that's entertainment or a professional service, being generous with that, whether that's through comedy, whether that's through an actual technical service, whether that's through value for money, being generous creates a really positive brand experience that highlights the performance in and of itself. We've all been to a good talk. Someone's given us a great talk. But if we've been to a great talk where the guy was really funny, we'll always remember that. We've been to a great talk and he's told a really meaningful story and I've got a lot out of that. That's generosity. He's shared something, he's been vulnerable, he's been open. That's generosity. And that generosity makes a huge difference in establishing your personal brand. So what do you do with authority, authenticity, and generosity? Well, really the confluence of all of those creates your brand. And it's really when they come together that you're able to position yourself to start to give out more and become more generous. And what you want to do in this space when you're a personal brand is create not just a personality where you are one thing, a lawyer, an accountant, a creative professional, or an entrepreneur. Instead, you become a slash operator. You are a media company slash entrepreneur. You are a Snapchat personality slash accountant. You are a social media guru slash lawyer. Why is that important? Because people know the platform they're going to find you on, and they know where to get you for what you know and what you know about what you do and what you bring to what you do. Why that's important is because then where things like authenticity and authority collide, you can start to document. What I mean by that is your daily life, being authentic about where you are, what you're doing, what you stand for, what your work is. You can document that. You can talk about your daily life. You can talk about how you go about particular processes. You can be generous with that. And that's where generosity comes in. Where authenticity and generosity collide, you start to get the opportunity to distribute your authentic self. So being authentic is about understanding the platform you're on. And so if it's inside knowledge, if it's backstage passes, if it's even sneak peeks at little pieces of intellectual property that's pretty key to your industry, if you can give some of that away for free and distribute it as a part of your generosity, you begin to build even more of a brand that you can then leverage for even more success. And then there's the collision between authority and generosity. And what are we doing there? Well, we're taking things that you're an authority on, such as if you're an accountant and you're really, really focused on corporate tax, then you're focused on that particular area and you want to be generous with it. So what can you do for businesses who might need your services? What are they looking for that they need help with that you can be generous with? What can you give away? Don't just give away IP for free, but think about their headaches and where they're at and how you can potentially help them. Because essentially what you're trying to do is stand for something, stand on something, and make it an experience for everyone. And if you can find a repeatable way to do that for your audience, where they can have an experience with you that's engaging and something that gives them a whole lot of value regularly by being an authority, by being your authentic self, and by being generous, you can create an immense personal brand that grows for years, year upon year. My name's Dave Yates. I hope this has been helpful. If you'd like to see any more information, I'm trying to be as authentic and as generous as I can on the areas I'm an authority on my website. Please head there and check out what you can. Cheers.